This video was sponsored by my anime into D&D Homebrew Packs. Every month comes a new package chock full of cool anime-themed content for your D&D 5e games. We're slowly branching into every anime, manga, and light novel-themed idea out there, with patrons getting the best deals on all the newest content. If any of this sounds interesting, you can check out the new website down below. And with that said, let's get right on with the video. D&D Horror Stories have grown to be a dominant force here in the community. Just to make sure we're all on the same page here, D&D Horror Stories are exactly what they sound like. Horrific D&D campaigns that contain some of the weirdest, disturbing, and downright illegal events that could ever happen in a tabletop gaming space. We have the racists, the weeaboos, the kinky furries, the edgelords, the creeps, the criminals, the rule breakers, and everyone in between. Sometimes the DM is the problem, sometimes it's the players. D&D Horror Stories are known for their shock factor because you never know what's coming next. Around 2 years ago, I can barely recall this type of content even existing on YouTube, and then all of a sudden, bam! Crit Crab, All Things D&D, Den of the Drake, Critical Kunik, and a bunch of other creators all diving into the game. These YouTubers would search for spicy stories on Reddit to then read out loud on their platform. Their go-to spots would be r/RPG and D&D Horror Stories, where a lot of the craziest stuff would be posted. Now, even though this origin story may seem simple enough, there's a lot of controversial opinions around the subreddits, each YouTuber involved, how they get their content, and the part that defamation and money have to play in all of this. You thought this was gonna be a funny, quirky video, but it was me, Blaine! Yeah, well, considering that we're talking about some YouTubers' livelihoods here, my wisecracking will be toned down in the hopes that you can leave this video a bit more informed than when you joined. So get comfy and let's begin. Gosh, I'm psyching this analysis to be like 40 minutes long, but I know it's only gonna be like 8. You know the website Reddit? Yeah, I know, pretty small platform, not a whole lot of people know about it. It's used primarily for browsing cute pictures of cats, funny memes, and secret forbidden sauce. However, on June 2015, in an even more obscure corner of the internet, sprouted r/D&D Horror Stories. Now, a take I always hear are from the people who can't enjoy any of the content purely because of the way Reddit itself encourages successful postings. If you want to get your story upvoted, it's gotta be engaging, thrilling, creepy, and weird. So obviously, if you want the story to grab a lot of attention, you need a firm hook to lure readers in. And what better way to design a hook than by lying? For every honest story, there's always the chance for one to be filled with false information. And for some Redditors, it doesn't matter if the story they write is completely fake or not, so long as they can farm their internet points and move on. Who's gonna go out of their way to double check the story? Who even can double check the story? Nobody knows anything about the OP besides the unverifiable details they put in their posts. Readers just need to assume that everything ever posted on the site is factual and move on. It gives the original poster complete authority over everything in the story, which can end up having some less than savory conclusions. In the case where the OP is obviously an unreliable narrator, it falls on the community to pick apart the post and figure out if the poster was the problem all along. Dang, that was a lot of peas. Most of the time, nobody cares though, so all the hot garbage mingles with the good content, and you can't tell what's decent anymore. It's like a beautiful wedding cake that somebody just dumped sand all over. Sure, if you try really hard, you can get a few spoonfuls of yummy cake, but most of the time, you'll be trying to scrape the sand off and still end up chewing grains in the process. So, horror stories are a mixed bag, and the way Reddit works as a platform just encourages it. Regardless, you now know about the wacky shenanigans of Reddit, so now we can get into the YouTuber side of things. Storytime channels existed long before the rise of Reddit story readings and were the main driving factor behind their success. People like listening to stories on the internet, and even though a large majority of the videos would just be moving text on a screen, viewers still tune in. I know I do. While I'm drawing a new YouTube video, knowing it'll only make me minimum wage, I like to listen into some D&D horror stories to keep me occupied. My eyes are focused on drawing, while my ears get to be blissfully cradled as the narrator talks about some D&D character's furry pooping diaper problem. Horror story YouTubers filled a niche that was deeply needed. Dramatic, long-running, easy-to-produce content that was simple for new listeners to jump into at any point. At the beginning, I wasn't too sure if this type of content was the stuff for me, but after my videos began taking longer than 40 hours to complete, my YouTube feed dried up and I was left with horror stories being the only D&D content I could watch that wasn't the entire history of Baldur's Gate. Now, in a nutshell, horror story YouTubers usually open their videos with a brief introduction, some teasers of the most interesting parts of the stories, and then jump right into the bulk of the content, which is the Reddit post. Afterwards, the YouTuber gives their own brief opinions on the story and the video ends. A single episode could last between 10 to 20 minutes, which is more than enough for those delicious mid-roll ads and a happy YouTube algorithm. Simple, right? Oh golly gee, I sure wonder how the internet will get upset this time. Dear insert D&D Horror Story channel here. You are in violation of stealing the stories written by Redditors, reading them, and then profiting off of other people's work. You are a lazy content creator who doesn't deserve the money or attention attention you've gained on the platform. Yours truly, a Redditor. Yeah, almost nobody I've brought this up to agrees with this. Some of them just like listening to horror stories, some just enjoy browsing Reddit, but everyone agrees that if you get permission from the OP and add something of value to your video like critique or voiceover, there shouldn't be a problem. People who think horror story YouTubers are evil need to find a more productive way to waste their time, because this opinion is wrong on every level. Even if you might think that the creators are lazy, you're still wrong. People may like to listen to horror stories because of the narrator's personality, voice flow, the story being told, or the reader's opinions afterwards. Finding a good story to record, recording it well, sharing your take on the story, adding video graphics, and editing this all together is transformative work. And doing this every week like most of them do takes serious effort. At one point, I was actually on the bandwagon that horror story channels barely put any effort into their videos, but then I realized just how much work goes into each of these factors, and I had no other feeling but respect for them. The endless torment of people demanding content to be a certain size, shape, and quantity is frankly terrifying. Personally, I haven't received any backlash for my lack of videos in the past, most likely because I add drawings to some of my stuff, which gives it the illusion of being higher quality. But that doesn't excuse the blatant stigma that other creators have to burden. If there's one thing I could agree on with the Redditors though, it's that D&D Horror Story channels don't have a whole lot of time to get personal with their viewers, expand their content into other horizons, or do anything that isn't a horror story. I mean, sure they could, but their subscribers have been watching the same format of content for ages now, and changing that up is the fastest way into the algorithm graveyard. That's just the curse of having your entire channel revolve around a single concept. If you genuinely like a creator and really want to support their stuff, giving them space and checking out their newest projects, regardless on the topic, is the best way to do it. So to summarize, D&D Horror Story YouTubers are passionate creators that brought a new form of content to the platform. Although the questionable validity of the stories they read is always a factor, the stories are interesting to engage with and a treat to binge. So long as approval is gained and credit is given, there's no reason to hate on anyone in this community for making their videos. The one thing we can all hope for is that these YouTubers can continue to enjoy making their content, and always have the freedom to branch out their channels or take breaks if the repetitiveness of the job ever kicks in. If you couldn't already tell, I'm on the YouTuber side here. The RPG horror story subreddits have had their way for a bit too long now, and with someone like me who's been a passionate member of the Storytime community for a while, it was about time I stepped in and said my piece. If you agree, then definitely smash that like button so we can spread this video around and offer support to these creators. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, then definitely check out my homebrew packs using the link down below. Consider subscribing if you're new, and I will see you all next time.